everyone, thank you so much for joining me for today's video. My favorite one to record every month, though it's a little bit late this month, but that is our TBR, this time for the month of August. I cannot believe we're already in August and fall is just around the corner. I am so excited. It's been a minute since I posted the video, and that was because I overestimated how much I could do in the last 2 weeks of July when I had a lot of other things going on. And I did not get around to being able to record anything. And that is also why my August TBR is a couple of days late. But hopefully, we can get back on track in August. We'll see how it goes. But I'm so excited to see what books I will be reading in August. But before we get to that, let's see how I did for July. You can probably guess based on not having time to record videos, I may not have done so well in my July TBR, but let's find out. All right, let's start off with our prompts. We had a monthly prompt, which was a book featuring a vacation or travel. I am currently reading A Dark and Drowning Tide, so technically this prompt is going to be completed, so we're going to count that. Next up, we had a astrological prompt, which was that the family had to play a major part of the plot, and I did read the Liar's Crown for this one. So that prompt's done. Then we had a prompt that features a group of friends, and I did read Greenwich for that prompt. Next up, we had a prompt that featured a book with a lion or a big cat on the cover title, and I did not read either of the book choices for this prompt, so we failed that prompt, our first fail. Then we had a prompt that the book had to have been released in a summer month, and I did read Ruthless Fae for this prompt. Then we had a prompt to read a dystopian book, and I ended up reading Free Falling, so completed this prompt. Then we had to read a book that matches the current season, and I did read Sleeping Tiger for that prompt. So overall, on the book prompts, I did a fairly good job. Now let's get to our jar pulls, where things didn't go quite as well. We had 4 next in series reads. We had The Revenge of Seven, which is a book in the Lorien Legacy series. I did not get to that. We had The Dark Archive, which is a book in the Invisible Library series, which I did read. We had The Red Scrolls of Magic, which is a book in the Shadowhunters universe, and I did read that as well. And then we had The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which is the first book in the Millennium series. I did start that, and I've enjoyed it, but I just haven't finished it yet. Then we had our 2 pulls from our new release jar, which were The Knight and the Moth, which I did not get to, and Wives Like Us, which I also did not get to. And then last but not least, from our Science Fiction Fantasy Award-winning / nominee jar, we had Spill Zone, and I also did not get to that. So I did not complete my July TBR. I started off really well, but the last 2 weeks I didn't get as much reading in as I hoped to, so we were not able to complete it, which is fine. That just means that for our first 2 jar pulls now, we will just be pulling 2 books. I have decided to kind of make a new rule that if I read at least 2/3 of the books on this TBR, which I did not do this month, but in future months, if I read at least 2/3, then our game will be status quo. There's no reward, there's no punishment. We just stay exactly the same. So let's hope August goes well. We'll see what happens. All right, I think we are ready to get started. Let's pull up the game board. We'll randomize our tokens, and then we'll go ahead and do our first roll for August. All right, here we are back with our game board. First thing we have to do is to randomize our tokens and see where they end up on the board. So let's go ahead and do that right now. All right, here are our tokens. Our most dangerous ones, I feel, are these 2 time for vacation tokens down here. That one's a boarding pass. That one just goes back to the previous time for vacation. And then we have a bunch grouped up there. So we'll see how this goes. All right, roll number 1. 7. New book release jar. All right. Roll number 1, not too bad. We rolled a 7. That's almost as high as you can roll with an 8-sided die, so we'll take that. And we landed on our new release jar. So let's grab that jar, and we'll be pulling 2 books out of the jar to read. All right, so here's our new release jar. In here, we have books that I add quarterly that I am excited about that are coming out that quarter. So we have about 2 years worth of books in here now. So all fairly new releases. So let's go ahead and grab our 2 books. All right, book number 1. All right, we'll go with this one here. And it is going to be, I don't know, I can't get it open. This is An Education in Malice. All right, so this is a dark fantasy academia book, the type of book that I absolutely love, one of my favorite genres out there. And this book is set in Massachusetts in St. Perpetua's College. The book follows Laura Sheridan, who is thrust into an intense academic rivalry with the beautiful and enigmatic Carmelia. And together they are kind of drawn into the confidence of their demanding poetry professor, De La Fontaine, who holds her own dark obsessions with Carmelia. So they're tangled in the sinister game of politics, bloodthirsty professors, and dark magic, and they must decide how much they are willing to sacrifice in their ruthless pursuit of knowledge. So that is her first book. It came out back in February of 2024. All right, time to choose our second one. Here we go. We're going to go with this one right here. Hopefully it's a good one. Let's see what it is. And it is One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware. All right, so we're going to add a little bit of a thriller mystery onto our TBR. This one came out back in May of 2024. And it's kind of like a book that is following the theme of Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. It follows 5 couples who are trapped on a storm-swept island as a killer stalks among them. So the book mainly follows Lila and her boyfriend Nico, who end up joining the cast of a new reality TV show called The Perfect Couple. And after they make it onto the show, they end up being whisked off to this tropical paradise, boating through the Indian Ocean towards Ever After Island, where they will compete against 4 other couples in order to win a cash prize. But not long after they arrive, things start to go wrong. A storm ends up arriving, which cuts them off from the mainland. They don't have their phones, they can't contact the crew who dropped them off there, and now they kind of have to band together for their survival. And the stakes are now life or death. So that sounds like a fun summer mystery thriller, so I am happy to get that one onto my TBR. And sounds like the perfect read to read, outside, or if there's a thunderstorm, which we've had a lot of in this summer, it'll be the perfect book to read at that time. So those are our first 2 books on our TBR. So let's go ahead and bring up the game board and go do our second roll. Roll number 2 is a 1. And that is blue. All right, we're slowing down a little bit. We only rolled a 1, but we did land on blue, which is my favorite color to land on in this game. That is because in this bag, we have all our prompts that change each month. So for August, we have prompts that have to do with summer, the month of August, as well as the 2 astrological signs in August, which are Leo and Virgo. All right, let's go ahead and mix up our prompt cards and see what our first prompt of the game will be. All right, we're going to split the deck there. We will take this prompt, which is a summer prompt, so that's awesome. And our summer prompt says a graphic or magna novel, which I don't have any. All right, so as I own no graphic novels or magna novels, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to put Spill Zone from my science fiction fantasy jar pull from last month back on to this month because it is a graphic novel and it is available from one of the libraries that I belong to. So this graphic novel follows Allison, who 3 years ago there was an event that kind of destroyed her city, as well as claiming her parents and scarring her little sister. So now Addison provides for her little sister by photographing the zone's twisted attractions on illicit midnight rides. But getting close enough to take these perfect shots could mean death or worse. When an eccentric collector makes a $1 million offer, Addison has to decide to break her own hard-learned rules of survival and venture further than she has ever dared within the Spill Zone. So that we'll add that book on to our TBR. so that we get a graphic novel on our TBR, which I'm super excited about. And hopefully it will help out this month having that on here. All right, let's bring up the game board and do roll number 3. Roll number 3 is another one. And that is yellow. All right, so we rolled another one. Not the greatest, but we, moved ahead one spot on the board, so that's something. We did land on yellow though, so let's grab our yellow bag, which is right here. And in this bag, we have prompts that have to do with the plot of the book, some miscellaneous prompts, and some series prompts. So let's mix these up real quick and go ahead and get our next prompt of the game. All right, let's split the deck right here, and this is going to be our prompt. All right, so this is our prompt, and it is a plot prompt, and the book has to be in a trilogy or a duology. All right, that shouldn't be that hard. All right, so we'll go ahead for this prompt for our physical book. We are going to choose Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands, which is the second book in her Emily Wilde series. It follows Emily Wilde, who is a scholar of fairy folklore. In book 1, she ends up going on a trip to where these rare fairies live, and she researches so that she can add these fairies to the book that she is writing. There, her nemesis happened to follow her, who happens to be named Bamblebee, and he kind of drives her crazy as well. So this is the second book in the series. I am super excited to read this one and get this one on as a possibility on my TBR. Then for our electronic book choice, we are going with The Atlas Paradox by Olive E. Blake. This is the second book in her series, which is also a trilogy, and follows a group. It's a dark academia book that follows a group of scholars who managed to get into this college to do research and stuff. And there's a lot of kind of dark things that are going on within this college that they now are part of. And out of the 6 of them, one of them will not make it to the end of their schooling. So that is kind of the theme of the book. I overall enjoy the first one. I know that people who've read the second and third book don't enjoy it as much as the first one, but I do want to finish this trilogy. Plus, this book is also on my 25 books to read in 2025 list, which I'm doing horribly at. So I definitely need to get this one onto my TBR as well. So we'll add this one as our electronic book option for this prompt. All right, I just changed the battery, so if it looks a little bit different, that is why. Let's go ahead and bring up the game board and do roll number 3. Roll number 4. Went off the board. Try this again. Is a 3. And that is pink. All right, this time we rolled a 3 a little bit better and we ended up on pink. So let me grab that bag and we'll see what prompts we're looking at. All right, here is our pink bag. In here, we have prompts that have to do with the cover of the book, some series prompts, and some miscellaneous prompts. So let's go ahead and mix this up a little bit and see what we're going to get for our next prompt of the game. Hopefully something good. I want to get some easy books on here so that I can be successful in this TBR. We do have our graphic novel, which is great. Let's see what we can do here. All right, let's split the book here, or the book. Let's split the prompts here. And this will be our next prompt. It's a cover prompt. And it says, a cover with a person on it. It's not too hard of a prompt. A lot of books have people on them. So let's go ahead and let me take a look and see what physical book we're going to choose for this prompt. There are obviously a lot of books I can choose for this prompt. I am keeping it simple and easy and choosing a middle grade book to get a nice book onto this August TBR. And that is Until the Celebration by Zilpha Keatley Snyder. This is book 3 in her, I believe it's called Green Sky series. It's set on a different planet where there's 2 groups of people, those who live above ground and those who live under. The above ground people are known as the Kinder and are kind of like the utopian people. They don't fight, they don't yell, they don't have those words like kill and things like that in their language. And they believe that the people living underground are monsters and want nothing to do with them. And that's kind of like the basis of this trilogy. So the book follows a young girl who is chosen to become an elder and learn the secrets of her world, the secrets of the Kindar, which only the elders can really know. And as she learns these secrets, she realizes that she wants to change things in her world. So that is a series. I read it when I was younger and I'm really enjoying rereading it. So I'm looking forward to getting this on the TBR. And you can see that there are two people on the cover. So it meets that prompt. So let me look at our electronic book choices and I'll be right back. All right, so I have two options here. I can go with the easy kind of like YA book, which is Unbelievable, which is the third or fourth book in the Pretty Little Liars series, which follows a group of girls who are best friends, and one of their best friends ends up missing in the first book, and they fall apart. And this is them kind of rekindling their friendship and trying to figure out what happened to their friend that went missing. So these are pretty quick, pretty easy reads. So that would be an option. Or I can go for like a summer feeling book, a little summer romance book called Plotting Summer by Jess Gilman. This is a standalone book in the Falling for Summer series. This book follows Sunny Palmer, who is a anonymous best-selling author of many, many beloved romances. And she also stole Tristan's last name, who happens to be her next door neighbor and the guy that she's had a secret crush on for the entirety of her life. So one day she ends up visiting the small town that she grew up in, and of course she ends up running into Tristan. And shockingly, Tristan seems intent on reminding her what the island has to offer. Because, that's what friends do. Now she has to kind of resist his charms, guard her secrets at all costs, which is why it's vastly unfortunate that Tristan Palmer was and always will be her greatest weakness. So, a fun little summer romance book. So, I think out of these two, I am going to add Plotting Summer by Jess Heilman onto my TBR because it'll be a good option for this prompt. And, well, you can probably see up here, there are people on the cover. Two of them, to be exact. All right, let's pull up the game board for roll number 5. All right, roll number 5 is a 4. And that is our time for vacation, and there are no other similar ones, so we go back to the beginning. Why not start again? But we do get to graduate to the 10-sided die. It was too good to be true. We landed on the time for vacation boarding pass, and as there were no more of those tokens behind us, we ended up all the way at the beginning of the board. So that just means we will have to pull 2 books from our series jar, and hopefully we get some of those middle grade books that are in there, because this could be a long TBR game once again. So here's our series jar. In this jar are the next books in the 37 series that I'm currently reading that I've prioritized to put into this jar. So let's go ahead and see what we get. We have a long series in here, we have short series in here. Hopefully we get one of the series that has short books. I'm hoping for the best. All right, here's our first draw. And it is going to be The Murder on the Links. So this is a Agatha Christie novel. So definitely short. Her novels are not that long and they are pretty quick to read, so that is great. So this is the detective series of the name of the person I can never pronounce, Hercule Poirot. The synopsis of this book is that a man has been found stabbed in the back with a letter opener and left in a newly dug grave adjacent to a local golf course. So that will be the mystery that the detective will be working on. So this will be our first book from the series jar. Hopefully we get just as good of one on the second pull. No Wheel of Time, no Mistborn, though I love that book. Those books are super long. Nice, easy draw. All right, we're going with this one here. For better or for worse, here we go. And it is Kiss of Frost. This is by Jennifer E-Step. It's a mythology-based fantasy book that is a YA book set in a boarding school. That was the lid that just fell. These are super quick reads as well, so I'm super excited to get this book onto my TBR too. So this is the second book in the Mythos Academy book that follows Gwen Frost, who is a warrior in training at Mythos Academy. So she's kind of an outcast in this academy due to the kind of powers that she has, and this is her trying to find her way through the academy as she also has to protect herself from people and things that are after her. So it's just a fun little series and a quick read, like I said. So I'm super happy that that came out of the series jar. Could not have asked for any better polls. All right, let's bring up the game board once again. Go ahead and do roll 6. All right, roll number 6 is a 3. And that is blue. All right, we got a 3, but we did land on blue. So that's great. So let's grab that back and choose our next prompt. So once again, these are our summer prompts, August prompts, Virgo, and Leo prompts. So let's see what we get. Hopefully a good one. All right, let's put the deck there. This will be our prompt. It's a Leo prompt, I believe. Yes. All right, it is a book covered with flame, a candle, or a campfire. Perfect for the summer. Hopefully we have one of those on our shelves. All right, we have 2 choices on the physical side. We have the Teller Small Fortunes, which has a little campfire right there. No, right there. And we have the Dagger in the Flame, which has these flames kind of going up everywhere. So those are our 2 options. They are both fantasy books. The Dagger in the Flame looks like it's a romantasy enemies to lover type romance book that follows Seraphine, who is 18 years old and is running for her life after her mother was murdered. She ends up seeking sanctuary with the cloaked, and her heart is set on revenge. But are her secret abilities a match for the dark-haired boy whose quicksilver eyes follow her around the city? When she finally comes face to face with him, she finds out that he is the heir to the Order of Daggers, which is her enemy guild. So that is our first option. Then we have the Teller Small Fortunes that follows Cal, who's a immigrant fortune teller traveling between villages with her trusty mule for companies. She only tells small fortunes, whether it will hail next week, when the cow will calve, because she knows from bitter experience that big fortunes come with big consequences. So this is kind of like a cozy fantasy book. I think out of these 2, I'm going to go with the Dagger and the Flame because it just feels more summery to me. I don't know why. I kind of want to save this one as we head into fall since it's more of that cozy fantasy style. So we will add The Dagger and the Flame by Catherine Doyle to our TBR. All right, now we got to choose our electronic book if we have one. All right, we also have 2 options from the electronic book side of things. We have The House Witch, which has a little kind of campfire underneath the pot. I guess I'll show you to it up there. And then we have The Night Burns Bright, which entire cover is basically a flame. All right, so The House Witch is a cozy fantasy. It's book 1 in the House Witch series. And it follows Finlay Ashowan, who ends up joining the staff of the King and Queen of Daxaria, but he keeps secret who he actually is, where he came from beforehand, and just wants to do his job as the royal cook. But his secret does not end up staying very long because he has a house witch and a kitten familiar, and he begins meddling in imperial affairs. And then his past starts to catch up with him just as his love life is getting complicated. So that's our first option. So then we have The Night Burns Bright by Ross Barkin. This book follows Lucien, who has everything that he needs. He has his loving mother, a library full of books, and House of Earth, which is a private school nestled safely in the woods of upstate New York. But his youthful curiosity ends up drawing him into town and to Gabrielle, who's a public school student living a life very different from his own. Lucien starts to have questions about life beyond the commune that he is living in. and starts to question things regarding different events that have happened in the world. And as things begin to change at the House of Earth, the outside world becomes off limits, security measures tighten, new rules are put in place. And as his forbidden questions pile up, his willingness to obey these new rules weakens. So unable to remain silent any longer, Lucian will soon discover that looking for answers at House of Earth may be the most dangerous role he can break. So we got a cozy fantasy book. We got a kind of coming to age, growing up in a commune book. So out of these two, I am going to go with The Night Burns Bright, just again because I want to save the cozy fantasy books for fall since we're getting very close to fall. So we will add The Night Burns Bright by Ross Barkin onto our TBR. It definitely sounds like it has a interesting premise, so I'm interested to see what it's like if I do choose to read the electronic book for this prompt. And let's bring up the game board for roll number 7. Roll number 7, again off the board, is a 5. And that is another blue. All right, this was a little bit better. We did roll a 5, but we again landed on blue. Not complaining there. So let's go ahead, grab that bag one more time, and choose our next prompt. All right, let's mix these up. We'll split it here, and this is going to be our prompt. It looks like a Leo prompt by the color. Hopefully that focused. And it is a book that features a king and or queen. All right, well, that's going to narrow down a lot of books. All right, let me take a look at our physical books and see what we have. So the book we are going to go with for our physical book prompt is This Woven Kingdom. And it's the first book in this series, and it's also one of my books on my 25 books to read in 2025. So I really want to get to this. I forget I'm blanking on what the series is called. Anyway, this book follows Aliza, who is a disposable servant to all the world, never to be known for who she truly is, which is the long lost heir to an ancient Jinn kingdom. Until one day, she makes a mistake. So, the other character in this book is the Crown Prince Cameron, who has heard the prophecies and he knows of the fearsome monster promised to kill his king. So, king, we got a king in here that meets the prompt. As he grows more suspicious of the servant girl with the strange eyes, the more he learns about her, the harder it is to turn away. Even if falling for someone like Elise means forfeiting everything he's ever known. So we got some clashing empires, we got forbidden romance, and a long forgotten queen. So definitely meets the prompt for a book that features a king and or a queen. So this will be our physical book for our TBR. Now let me see if we have any electronic books that fit this. I'm not sure if we do. All right, I found a book from our electronic book choices that does feature king and queen as well, and it is the School of Good and Evil series. It's book 4, I believe, called The Quest for Glory, and it follows well, I really can't say it follows, so I can't really say what this book is about because otherwise it kind of ruins the series, but just know that there is a king and queen on it. This is a book, like I said, that takes place in the School for Good and Evil, that are two schools that train the villains and the heroes of fairy tales. And the book mainly follows two girls, Agatha and Sophie, who come from the same little village, who are not born in the fairy tale woods, but every couple of years, the school takes two basically mortals from the village to enroll in their school. And in the very first book, that happens to be Agatha and Sophie. So these books are just kind of fun middle grade fantasy books. It was a really popular series when it came out, and I'm excited to continue on with it. I finished the original trilogy, and then this is kind of like the add on books that happen after that. So that will be our electronic book choice for a book featuring king and or queen. All right, let's bring out the game board and do roll number 8. Roll number 8 is a 4. That is pink. All right, we rolled a 4, not terrible. We landed on pink, so let's grab that bag and choose our next book. All right, so in our pink bag, we again have our cover prompts, miscellaneous prompts, and series prompts. So let's mix this up, make sure we get a good prompt, one that we get to choose, and not a series prompt, is that we don't get to choose. All right, here we go. Oops, that was 2. This is the 1. We have a cover prompt. And it is a cover with no more than 3 colors. Well, that should not be difficult at all. Let me take a look through our books and see what our choices are, though I think I know which one I'm going with. I just thought about it. All right, this is the one we're going with. This is The Reckoning by Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti. It is book 3 in the Zodiac Academy series. I finished book 2 in July, and I'm super excited to get the next book onto it. These are just quick reads. They're definitely long, but I can kind of binge read these because they're just fun, not have to take anything seriously. Books to just, read it on my free time when I just want to be entertained. So these books follow a pair of twins, Tori, and you think I would know these names off the top of my head. Tori and Darcy, and they are raised in the mortal world only to find out that they are actually the daughters of the king and queen of Solaria, which is this Fey world, where everyone has magic. And they are informed of this by one of their professors at the school who sweeps them back into Solaria. And they have to start going to the Zodiac Academy, and they have to get through and complete the Zodiac Academy to get their inheritance. The only issue is that when their mom and dad died, the king and the queen, this group of um, this council kind of took over ruling, and they do not want Tori and Darcy to be there because they plan on leaving the role of Solaria to their heirs who are also at the school. So the heirs are trying to get Sophie and Tori to leave, and Sophie and not Sophie. Where did I get that from? Darcy and Tori to leave. And Darcy and Tori are not wanting to leave because they want the money from their inheritance. So that is the gist of it. I just love a school atmosphere, which is why I like this book. And I love books set in magical academies. So this will be our book choice because there are only 2 colors on the book. We got black and we got silver. So perfect. All right, let me see what the electron book choice is going to be, though I'm probably going to read this one for this prompt. All right, we're going with The Last Exodus, which is book 1 in the Earthborn trilogy by Paul Tassi. And this is a science fiction book that is set after the Earth has been ruined in a intergalactic war, where nobody ended up winning and there are few survivors left. Lucas happens to be one of those survivors. He's trying to find out if his family survived, but instead he finds a ship that is buried in the wall of the crater that belonged to Earth invaders. And that ship happens to work, and now Lucas must work together with an alien scientist and a raider to get the ship to fly. So the book has mostly just black and grays, maybe a little white, so that is also 3 colors. So that will be the book that we're going to be adding to our TBR. Woohoo! All right, 8 books down. Technically 10 because we had to choose 2 from the first 2 jars. All right, let's move on to roll number 9, see what we get. Roll number 9 is a 2. And that is yellow. We are rolling low numbers. This is crazy, even with a 10-sided die. We landed on yellow this time. So here's our yellow bag. This, I believe, has our plot prompts. Yeah, our plot prompt series and miscellaneous prompts. All right, let's see what we get. I am liking how this TBR is shaping up, though. I need to get some more middle grade books onto here, though, some easy reads to make sure I can do this, complete it. All right, here we go. This is our prompt. Oh, it's a series prompt. I don't even want to know what the series is. The School of Good and Evil series. Well, that works out great because we already have Quest for Glory on our TBR. So we'll probably end up reading that one so that we can knock off 2 books with one or knock off 2 prompts with 1 book. So there we go. That was easy. All right, let's bring up roll number 10. Roll number 10 is a 4. That is our new release jar. All right, this time we rolled a 4. We once again landed on our new release jar, so let me grab that. All right. This time we only have to choose 1 book out of it, though, not 2. So that is good. All right, here we go. Let's hope for a good one. A nice, easy read, a middle grade book. Something short and bingeable. That will work too. All right, we're going with that one. All right, here we go. we will be reading The Lost Story. All right, I can't complain about that one. This book came out last year, 2024, and it follows Jeremy and Rafe, who went missing in a vast West Virginia state forest, only to reappear 6 months later with no explanation for where they gone or how they survived. The book jumps ahead 15 years later. Rafe is a artist who bears the scars inside and out, but has no memory of what happened during those months that he went missing, while Jeremy has become a famed missing person investigator. So he ends up being the one person that can help Emily Wendell find her sister who vanished in the same forest that Rafe and Jeremy had 15 years earlier. Jeremy is the only one that knows the fantastical truth about the disappearances because while the rest of the world was searching for them, the two missing boys were in a magical realm filled with impossible beauty and terrible danger. He thinks that is where they will find Emily's sister. But Jeremy has kept Rafe in the dark for his own inscrutable reasons, but the time for burying these secrets comes to an end as the quest for Emily's sister begins. So the former Lost Boys must confront their shared past, no matter how traumatic the memories, to find her sister. So I'm excited to read this one. It sounds like an interesting premise. And I cannot wait to see if I will enjoy it. So that will be our next book on our TBR. All right, let's bring up roll number 11. Roll number 11 is a 10. And that is blue. All right, that is more like it. We finally rolled a 10 and we ended up on blue. So we get to pull a book from our favorite blue bag. All right, we are getting so close to the end of the board. I'm so excited. All right, so these are our prompts that have August, Summer, Virgo, and Leo in here. Let's finish this game strong. Let's get us a good prompt. And here we go. We're gonna go with this one. Ooh, it's the August prompt. All right. A book that is set in Europe. All right, we can do that. All right. So many of my physical books are now fantasy books. I don't have a lot set in Europe. So we're just gonna put Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping onto our TBR. This book is set in Britain. It is a cozy fantasy, so I'm hoping we can get a electronic book that I rather read because I do want to save this for the fall, but we will add it to our TBR for now. The book follows Sarah Swan, who used to be one of the most powerful witches in Britain, but due to some things that she did, she ends up losing her magic. And then she finds out about an old spell that could hold a key to restoring her power. And that is when Luke Larson enters, who happens to be a handsome but icy magical historian who may know how to unlock the spell's secrets. But Luke has no interest in getting involved in the going ons of the inn and is definitely not wanting to let a certain bewitching innkeeper pass his walls. So no one is more surprised than he when he agrees to help Sarah with her spells. Worse, he might actually be thawing. So a nice little cozy fantasy romance. Like I said, I definitely am hoping to read this in the fall, but it is set in Britain, so we're going to add it to TBR and hope that we can find a book from my electronic book list that I would rather read for this prompt. All right, I did find a book I'd rather read on my electronic book list, and it is How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen Perrin. And it is set in Britain, and it's also on my 25 books to read in 2025, which I'm really trying to knock out now that we are over halfway through the year. So this is book one in the Castle Knoll files. So the book starts off in 1965 when teenage Frances Adams is at a English country fair with her two best friends. But then a fortune teller at the fair makes a bone-chilling prediction that one day Frances is going to be murdered. So she ends up spending a lifetime trying to solve the crime that hasn't happened yet, compiling dirt on everyone that crosses her path. But for decades, no one takes her seriously until nearly 60 years later when she is found murdered like she always said she would be. In the present day, Annie Adams has been summoned to a meeting at the country estate of her wealthy and reclusive great aunt, who happens to be Frances. And by the time that she arrives at the English village of Castle Knoll, Frances is already dead. Annie is determined to figure out who killed her aunt, And thanks to Francis's lifelong habit of digging up secrets and lies, it seems like every villager had a motive to kill her aunt. So now she has to unravel the dark mystery at the heart of Castle Knoll, or will dredging up this past throw her right in the path of the killer? Only time will tell. So I'm excited to get this on my list. I've been wanting to read it, obviously, because it is on my 25 books to read in 2025, and I'm excited to hopefully knock that out. So we'll most likely be reading this book for this prompt. All right, let's go ahead and bring up the game board and see what we get. And roll number 12 was a 9. Have to trust me on that one. We're using it. And that completes our game. All right, we finally did it. You are going to have to trust me. That was definitely a 9, and that brings us to the end of the board after 12 rolls. That means we just have to choose one more book from our Science Fiction Fantasy Award-winning jar, and our TBR will be complete for the month of August. All right, so in here we have about 75 books that have either won or been nominated for the Hugo, Nebula, Locus, or Golden Duck Award. So these books range from middle grade all the way up to adult. So we could really get anything in here. So let's go ahead and see what our last book for our August TBR is going to be. Two there. All right, we're going with this one. Hopefully it was the correct one. All right. Our last book on our August TBR. Oh, it's going to be His Majesty's Dragons by Naomi Novik. I'm so happy, even though this is a longer book, it is also on my 25 books to read in 2025. We are hopefully going to knock a bunch of books off that list this month. All right, so this is book 1 in her, I don't know how to pronounce this, Temeraire series. It's a historical alternative history fantasy book that is set during the Napoleonic Wars. And the alternative history part is that there are dragons in this war. So it follows Captain Will Lawrence, and his life is changed when the HMS Reliant captures a French frigate and seizes the precious cargo, which happens to be an unhatched dragon egg. And he ends up developing a unexpected kinship with the most extraordinary creature. He's thrust into the rarefied world of the Aerial Corps as master of the dragon Temeraire, and he will face a crash course in the daring tactics of airborne battle. For as France's own dragonborn forces rallied to breach British soil in Bonaparte's boldest gambit, Lawrence and Temeraire must soar into their own baptism of fire. All right, those are the books that are on our TBR. So let's go ahead and quickly do a recap. All right, so this is our stack of physical books, which is deceivingly small because we have a lot of jar pulls. But let's go through these real quick. So for our prompt with a cover with a person on it, we will be either reading Until the Celebration by Zilpha Keely Snyder or Plotting Summer by Jess Hilleman. For a book that's set in Europe, we'll be reading either A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana or How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen Perrin. Most likely going to read How to Solve Your Own Murder. For a cover with no more than 3 colors, we have The Reckoning by Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti, or The Last Exodus by Paul Tassi. For a book featuring a king or queen, we have This Woven Kingdom by Tahere Mafi, or Quest for Glory by Soman Shinani. Most likely we'll read The Quest for Glory because we also got that as a series card. So this is on our 25 books in 2025, so we'll see. All right, then for a cover with flame, candle, or campfire, we have The Dagger in the Flame and The Night Burns Bright. Most likely we'll read The Night Burns Bright. For in a trilogy or duology, we have Emily Wilde, Map of the Otherland, or The Atlas Paradox. Because I want to save this for fall, we'll probably read The Atlas Paradox. Then we had a graphic or manga novel. We are going to be reading The Spill Zone for that one. And then again, our series prompt, which was the next book in the School of Good and Evil series, which is The Quest for Glory. Our series jar pull was The Murder on the Leaks by Agatha Christie, which is the second book in the Hercule Poirot series. Then we also pulled Kiss of Frost by Jennifer Estep, the second book in the Mythos Academy series. So those are our 2 series jar pulls. Then we had our new release jar pulls, which are The Lost Story by Meg Schaffer and Education and Malice by S.T. Gibson and One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware. And then last but not least, we have His Majesty's Dragon by Naomi Novik from our Science Fiction Fantasy Award-winning / nominated jar. So those are our books. I know I say this every month, but I truly think this is doable because we have some shorter books on here. We have some bingeable books on here, and we have a graphic novel on there as well. So I think this is doable. Plus, I'll be reading a lot of my 25 books to read in 2025 list, which I think I'm only up to like reading 5 or 6 or 7 off of that. So I definitely need that for this month. My hopes for this month for other videos, if it works out well, is going to be a fall new release video where we'll take a look at the 8 books that we'll be adding to our new release jar for the books coming out this fall. I'm going to be doing kind of a electronic book scavenger hunt, see how that goes. I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do that, but that will be a plan, in the same kind of idea as a bookshelf scavenger hunt, only with electronic books because I have a ton of those. Our reading game for this month is going to be a bingo book pong game thing where we're going to be playing book pong and having to make a bingo on a board. Is you'll see when that video comes out. But I'm excited for that one too because it's going to be created to help me get through some of my reading challenges this year, to help me knock some books off of that. So those are the videos that should be coming out this month. As long as this month cooperates, that will be the plan. So thanks again for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button. If you want to see future videos from me, please hit that subscribe button. If you want to just let me know that you've watched the video, why don't we leave like flames or fire for our prompt where we had to read a book that had a flame, candle, or campfire on the cover. So let's go ahead and do that. And yeah, that's it for this video. Thanks again for joining me. I truly appreciate it. And I will see you in my next one. Take care. Bye.